Hey, what's going on? Chris here from MIXDOWN Online. Now today I'm going to show you how to create your own drum samples. Hey, what's going on? Chris here from MIXDOWN Online. Now today I'm going to answer some questions that I received like maybe a couple months ago about drum sampling. That is a question I received related to a video that I released back in June. And this one had to do with something that I do every time I record drums. And this is to sample my drums. So now I'm going to show you how I sample my drums so you can do it on your own. Now, before we jump in, if this is your first time here on this channel, feel free to subscribe and to click the notification bell so you don't miss anything. And for all of you, share and like this video. That actually helps me a lot. Now, when I'm talking about creating drum samples, this is something that I do every time I record drums, like I shared in my other video. That can be very useful, especially to do some corrections or having those samples as backups when editing or mixing. So let's jump in Cubase and show you what I have here. So what we see here is the recording of those samples. What I did is I recorded each drums individually several times with a lot of spacing between the hits so I can get a full length recording of each hit. So I did that with the kick, the snare, the tom, and the floor. So let's focus on the snare. I'm going to solo that snare. And let's listen to the 3 hits we have. Okay, I'm going to keep the second one. So what I'm going to need to do is to select the scissor tool and to make sure my snap to grid is not activated. I'm going to zoom in like crazy. I'm just going to bring this one up and this one down so we can focus more on the correct track. Okay, now I'm going to cut at the beginning of the waveform that we see here. So right at around this point. Okay, and then I'm going to look for a way to cut the end of that waveform. All right, so somewhere around this point is going to be good. All right, I'm just going to clear that up and clear that one up. Now I have my sample. I'm just going to add a fade in to the audio event, just a quick one, and do the same at the end of that event, a bit more longer this time. I think that is going to be good enough. I can even bring that close. So I don't need the end tail of that event to be very, very long, okay? Because it's a very brief hit that I'm looking to sample. Something like that is going to do the job. And just a bit longer, and we're going to be good. All right, once I'm happy with my sample, I'm going to select the audio event if you're working in Cubase and click on P. That will set up the left and right locators so I can only export this portion of the project. And then I'm going to make sure my track is in solo. And I'm going to click on Export. I'm going to select and name my sample. So snare sample, I'm going to name that SN sample, and 11. There you go. This is going in directly into my sample folder. I'm going to click on mono down mix because it's only a mono track that I'm bouncing, and perform audio export. And that's it. Okay, now I have created myself a snare sample. Now, I did that in mono. I could have done it in stereo. It doesn't matter much. In the case I would use stereo is if I wanted to create a sample that includes the overheads and the room mics. In that case, I would bounce that in stereo and blend that up before I bounce and create a sample out of those. I could actually just export at the same time on a separate sample the rooms and the overheads if I want to. I'm not going to do this because the only thing I need here is the snare sample of the direct signal. I'm going to repeat that procedure for the toms, floor, and the kick. And export those. I can also do the same with my cymbals. And this is something that I actually do because that can be also useful when editing. If the drummer missed a cymbal hit, you can use those recorded hits that are still part of the same drums, which again makes those additional cymbals sound more natural within the recording. So this is another way you can do it. In that case, I would sample maybe 2 cymbals at a time, left and right, and then 1 at a time also, so I can have several options afterwards. All right, so now that I have my snare sample created, let's go and replace the problematic part of my recording with that sample. As you can tell, there's a lot of hi-hats. I'm going to solo my snare and listen to what I have here. There's a lot of bleed, a lot of hi-hat bleed here, so this is the part that I want to correct. Now, I duplicated that track, the snare track, and on that second duplicated track, what I did here is I added a plugin from Steven Slate called Trigger 2. I kind of like using this plugin when I do some drum replacement, but there's a way you can do this within Cubase without the use of a plugin like Trigger. If you want to know how to use this technique, I'm going to leave the link on top because I did a video a while ago talking specifically about this technique that you can do within Cubase. But for this tutorial, I'm going to use Trigger. So I have that inserted on the duplicated snare track. And then what I'm going to do is to look for my snare sample, which is, and there you go. I'm just going to replace this one. Perfect. I have my snare sample. I'm going to listen to it. All right, so now we're good. Now, next what I'm going to do is I just want to replace the snare only on the second chorus. So I'm just going to split. I'm going to go back to my original snare track, split that one up at the beginning of the chorus. And then at the end of the chorus, I'm going to split that again. On the second track, the duplicated track, I'm just going to remove everything and you'll know why afterwards, and just copy that down over to the trigger snare track. That's it. And if I listen, this is what I get. Now I have a cleaner sound for the chorus that doesn't include a lot of hi-hat bleed. So this is how I create myself a sample, and this is how I incorporate that sample in a session afterwards. Okay, now let's listen to the original again. Okay, now I'm going to delete this one, unmute the second track. Now I have a way more cleaner snare sound out of the same recording without a lot of hi-hat bleed. So this is an example of things I can do by sampling my drums when I do some drum recording. So this is going to be it for today. I hope that was helpful. If so, share, like, and comment also. Leave your comments down below if you have any questions. And if you're new here on the channel, again, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell. All right, guys, take care. I'm going to see you next time.